Hey guys, this is Calistonian. I'm the developer of the Heirs of Elendil submod for Third Age Divide and Conquer 2.2, and I wanted to make this video to go over some basic skills, not modding skills necessarily, but just user skills that I think everybody who's using my submod should be aware of. Some basic knowledge. We're going to talk about setting up the shortcut for the submod because I think that's the most logical way to launch the game. I'm going to talk about a few common crashes so that you guys can help provide productive feedback for diagnosing if the submod is in fact crashing, how to check the log, how I recommend that you save your game. We're also going to talk about some other things like changing the faction name with a text file and taking screenshots. So all of this stuff's going to be very basic, and I'm going to try to go through it fairly quickly because it is kind of a diversity of topics, but each one of them is very straightforward. So this is going to be a very technical video. This is not going to be an installation video because our Here Galadirathon already has excellent installation videos, even for installing the Dwarven Overhaul project, which is a submod and manual installation. I think he has that, but it should be, something that I'm going to assume is that you know how to use copy and paste to actually install Heirs of Elendil. And Heirs of Elendil also has it has a step-by-step process for the installation in a text file that's included with the download. So if you're unsure about how to actually install the mod itself, I encourage you to check that file or contact me on Steam or on Discord. But I'm just going to go through the very last stage, which is how to actually launch the mod by setting up the shortcut, which I think is something that still confuses people because people still seem to be preferring to use changing launch options in Steam or overriding one of the vanilla expansion packs, Teutonic or whatever. And that's really not the way to do it. So starting off, when you have installed Third Age, as it says in the installation document, I do encourage you to first verify that I've renamed my folder with this DAC here at the end of the name, but it will just simply be third_age_3. And once you have installed Third Age 3.2 and Divide and Conquer 2.2 and the Dwarven Overhaul project submod on top of all that, I do strongly encourage you to make sure that that installation is working properly and that you have everything set up and that there's not an issue there, because obviously if you're reporting bugs with Heirs of Elendil, we need to know that it is only a problem with Heirs of Elendil and not a problem with your installation. And I know that it's extremely common. Lots and lots of people have issues installing Divide and Conquer for whatever reason, even though it has its own installer, which Heirs of Elendil is not. So yes, definitely make sure that you have the mod functioning properly before you have installed Heirs of Elendil. Then, once it's functioning properly, go ahead and make a copy of that folder and make sure that you've renamed it third_age_3_he. That will be the same name as the folder that's included in the download for the submod. And you do need to make sure that the name on the folder is exactly that and nothing else, because if you check in the bat file, which we're actually going to use to launch the mod, with the text editor, it will say that it is indeed looking for third_age_3_he. So you do want to make sure that you have named your folder correctly. Now, once you have this set up and you've copy pasted all of the Heirs of Elendil files into your copy of DAC 2.2 with Dwarven Overhaul project, everything will be set up and it will look something like this, and you'll have this ICO file that wasn't in there before. And that's simply the icon for the shortcut. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the bat file and we're going to create shortcut, and we're going to rename the shortcut whatever we feel like. And then we're going to right click on the shortcut itself and come to properties. And this is explained in the installation instructions that are included in a text file in the download, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you just as the beginning of this video, just as a visual aid. And so we're going to click apply and go OK, and now we've applied this ICO file's White Tree of Gondor, and we can drop that wherever we want. And I like to keep it on the desktop along with my other submods for Third Age. So here we have Vanilla DAC and Reforged and Heirs of Elendil, and this will allow you to launch the mod. Again, I do think that this is just the most logical way of setting it up without having to override any Steam launch options or anything every time you want to switch between mods. You can simply switch between these mods by launching them from their bat files using these shortcuts, so it's significantly easier. Now, just to verify that this does in fact work, I can go ahead and launch the mod, which brings us into our next issue. If you are encountering crashes when you are launching the mod, I'm just going to go through 4 of the most common types of crashes. And the first one is it will get about to this point and it won't take you to the main menu. It'll crash here and it will say Heirs of Elendil has encountered unspecified error, or it'll say Medieval 2 Total War has encountered unspecified error, and will now exit. Now, if you do encounter that error, it will be because of the BMDB file, which is this file here. And it's the most frustrating of all the errors. When you get that pop-up message and it crashes right at the start when it's launching, that's simply because there was an error in here, and it can be as simple as adding an extra character at the end of a line, making this 22 characters long instead of 21, which it's looking for, and that will crash the whole game. And frustratingly, it will not show up in the log file. So I'm going to go over how to check the log file and provide productive feedback for crashes in just a moment, but just be aware that if you do get this particular type of crash, it is almost certainly because I forgot to include the battlemodels.modeldb in the Heirs of Elendil download. So if that is the case, do let me know. Second type of crash is if you're loading into a custom battle and it's very similar to the same crash. It'll give you the same message, Medieval 2 Total War has encountered an unspecified error when I exit. And you're loading in a battle on the campaign map or in a custom map, a custom battle, whatever, and you encounter that message, that will almost certainly be because of a missing art asset. So if we look here, this file specifies different art assets. It connects art assets with the data for the unit. And so, for example, if this mesh file were missing from this directory, then it will give you that error and it will crash the game. So that will be the problem there, and again, that'll be because I probably forgot to include some art asset, or something is missing from the game file somewhere. So I do want to know, but if that does happen, it will show up in the log. And the next 2 errors that we'll talk about, they also show up in the log. So if you crash right at the start, if you are unable to even launch, when you attempt to launch, it doesn't give you any error message at all, it simply will not start, then and it doesn't say unspecified error or anything like that, that's a data issue. That's probably related to the desk.strat file or the campaign script file or a text file, some other text file. And that is also a good type of crash because it will show up in the log. And finally, another common issue is when you go to start a campaign, you will go to, I'll just show real quick, we can kind of fake this. That when you go to start any of the campaigns, it doesn't matter which campaign, you select any campaign and you click the start button here, and then it just kicks you back right here to the menu. That will be because of an error in the desk.strat file. Usually it's because of an error in the desk.strat file. So if that is happening, again, it's probably just because I forgot to include the most updated version of the desk.strat file. So definitely do let me know about that. Now to actually check the log, because as I said, the last 3 of those errors, most of those errors, except if it's in the BMDB file, they will show up in the log file. And the way that you check the log file is you simply come to your Medieval 2 Total War installation, and you go to this logs folder. Now, if you don't have a logs folder after you've crashed, simply induce the crash a second time, and this logs folder will be generated. Then you come into the logs folder and you do this systemlog.txt. I'm not even going to bother with Notepad++ for this because it's perfectly intelligible just in Notepad. And I usually come all the way down to the bottom. And what you're looking for is a discontinuity in the data that it's spitting out. So here it's telling us about some triggers that are firing, and this is not very interesting, but we continue to scroll up, and then here we find a discontinuity. As you can see here, there are currently, since I just demonstrated that I can in fact launch the submod, there are no critical game-breaking errors, fatal crashes that are occurring currently, but if there were, they would probably occur somewhere around here with this first discontinuity from the bottom. They may also occur at other points, but typically as you scroll through this file, you'll notice there's some script errors, there's some warning, there are a few different errors and warnings, but most of these are telling us about art assets that are missing from the game that Medieval 2 thinks should be in the game, but are just simply not there in this mod. And those are non-fatal and they will not cause crashes. But if you do have a crash, it'll be at a discontinuity in the data. In these large blocks of data, it'll be somewhere like this. And that is the pertinent information that I want to know. So if you are reporting a crash of that type, and it does show up in the log file, you can simply copy and paste this data from where it will say, and it'll say something very specific. It will say the desk or strat file failed to build because of an error. The line before it will say an error occurring at line 7124 in campaign script.txt, variable name missing or cannot find this variable or whatever. And then the line below will say, and therefore it has failed to build campaign script.txt. That's the information that I want to have. If you are experiencing that type of crash at any point in the campaign, if you move a character to a certain place or you end the turn, it crashes, it'll probably show up here in the logs file, and that's the information that I want to be able to diagnose that crash. It'll occur right here. Alternatively, you can simply send me the entire log file. So this is how you test log. If you're not seeing this much information in your log file, you can see there's quite a lot of data here. If you're not seeing a log file that's quite this long, it is almost certainly because in your third-age-shuttlewar.cfg file, which is this file here, which will be included in your Heirs of Elendil download, it comes with its own, if I come back here, yes, here it is. You can open this in Notepad++, and I have it here, and it will say here level equals script trace, and this is what you want to have. And this is already enabled by default for Heirs of Elendil. And this will simply just give you all of that detailed information that you need about script errors that are crashing the game. So moving on, there are certain errors in the game that cannot be really addressed just by checking the log. And this is just kind of an issue with divide and conquer that I've noticed. It tends to happen somewhere between turn 0 and turn 100 at least, sometimes later, sometimes sooner, and it's the end turn crash. Now the end turn crash, I'll actually load an existing campaign. The end turn crash is just sort of something that happens in divide and conquer. It's just a little instability there. I'm not entirely sure what causes it. Some people have suggested that it's caused by certain factions sieging certain settlements with certain armies at certain times in certain places, and I can't really speak to any of that. They maintain that if you use console commands, you can move the attacking army away, or if you move one of your armies in and attack them and do all this. I've tried some of that stuff in the past, and I've never gotten it to work because, in my experience, it simply corrupts the campaign at that end turn. So there's nothing that can be done. If your save game is simply crashing every time you end a turn on one particular turn, you keep reloading that save game and it keeps crashing at the end of the turn, you could toggle Fog of War and search through the entire campaign map and attempt to find where that siege is happening. But I think it's unlikely that you're going to have success with that. And at any rate, it's significantly easier to simply adopt the saving method for saving your game that I'm about to show you, which you may have already seen while I was loading in this campaign. But basically, you save your game using the last digit of the turn number. So for example, we're currently on Arthedain 0, and that's because this is turn number 30. And so the next turn I would save as Arthedain 1. And the way that the reason that I do this is simply because DAC, again, does have this kind of issue with crashing that I don't think anybody has been able to resolve. Nobody has identified really the issue, otherwise it would have been fixed by now. But it has happened in every single one of my Divide and Conquer campaigns. I'm not sure if Heirs of Elendil makes this problem better or worse, but I would just err on the side of caution and go ahead and save your campaigns like this regardless. Simply because this will allow you 9 turns backwards in time, which you can revert to if you're experiencing a fatal crash. So in my experience, if I experience a fatal end turn crash, I have never had to go back more than 4 or 5 turns, and this is plenty of time to go back. And it's also useful for other things. Just in your campaign, I think it's nice to have the option to go back this far in time. Because the autosave, sometimes the autosave will save right before a battle or something, and it won't even get you back 1 turn. So it is not, even the autosave will not necessarily save you if you suffer from a fatal crash that corrupts the campaign save. So yes, I do recommend that you save your game like this, 0 through 9. Just seems like a logical way to save the game for me. And I see all the time people on Discord complaining about the fatal end turn crashes, and if you just save your game this way, which allows you to revert back maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 turns backwards in time, that almost always resolves that issue, and the campaign progresses past the turn where it was crashing. So this will prevent that from happening. This is kind of the solution to that issue, the best solution that I found to that issue. Now, the 2 more things to talk about: changing the faction name. I know this is something that a lot of people are interested in doing, especially in a submod like Heirs of Elendil, where you have the option to unite Arnor or various successor kingdoms of Arnor, as well as the reunited kingdom of Gondor and Arnor. And you may be disappointed that you can't actually change the faction name and see the faction name change in-game. Well, you can do that with scripts, and that's fairly complicated. It involves using a new faction. I'm not going to go into all of that. It involves using the United faction and basically duplicating the Northern Dunedain faction, but changing its user interface elements, its culture, its faction name, obviously, and the banner. But there is an easier way to simply change the faction name without having to do all of that, or using an external bat file. I know some mods use an external bat file to simply replace the expanded.txt file, and I'm just going to show you how to edit manually the expanded.txt file and do exactly the same thing. So as you'll see, if we come to our diplomacy screen, it says Northern Dunedain here, and if we quit out of the game, you do need to quit the game. This is save game compatible, and that's the only reason I'm showing you this. Obviously, it wouldn't serve much of a purpose unless it were save game compatible. But what you're going to do is come into your data folder where you have 3rd Age 3HE, and we're going to go to text, and we're going to come to expanded.txt. We're going to delete this bin file, and then we're going to open this in a text editor that's suitable, such as Notepad++. You don't want to use Notepad for this type of edit. And simply, I'm already at this line, but you're simply going to want to do a Control-F search and find this line that just says bracket Turks bracket in all caps, and this will be the faction name. So if we change this to Reunited Kingdom, then this will change it in-game and it will be save game compatible. Now you want to be cautious about having a faction name that is too long. Orcs of the Misty Mountains is a good reference to use because this is basically the limit. If your faction name is like 1 or 2 characters longer than this, it will not fit in some user interface elements such as the faction selection screen, possibly the diplomacy screen as well. So you don't want to make the faction name much longer than that. So if we were going for Reunited Kingdom of Arnor and Gondor, it probably wouldn't fit. So I'm just going to go with Reunited Kingdom here, and we're just going to test that and see what that did. And I'm also going to show here, as we're wrapping this up, that screenshots, you definitely do want, if you're using the Steam version, I think most of you are, you definitely do want to be using the F12 key to be taking screenshots. Whoops, let's load this campaign. You definitely want to use the F12 key, which is the Steam hotkey for in-game screenshots, and that will save to a special directory in your Steam library. And this will generate JPEGs, and it's just a lot better than what a lot of people seem to be insistent on doing, which is sticking their camera phone up to the computer screen and taking a picture that way. If you do that and you're reporting bugs, sorry, I'm probably just going to laugh at you on the Discord, and don't feel bad about that. It's just, you know, it's not okay. You do need to be taking screenshots the correct way with the Steam user interface that's set up for that. Using print screen does not work for Medieval 2 Total War for whatever reason. I don't know why it doesn't work, but... And I'll just demonstrate that quickly, how you can take that screenshot and then how you can access those files and do stuff with them. Just as soon as we finish loading the campaign map here. Okay, so let's check the diplomacy. And there you go, it says Reunited Kingdom, and it will say that everywhere else. So that's how you change the name. Now we can take a screenshot of that actually using the F12 key, and it has a little audio response there. And now to access that screenshot, I'll just quit out of the game. And we'll go into Steam, and you find the game in your library and go to View Screenshots, Show on Disk. And this will be the file here. Now you don't need to use an image editor like GIMP. Opening JPEGs will happen with any sort of default image viewer that you have on Windows. And that's it. And so if you're reporting a bug, this is what you should be doing to report that bug, as opposed to taking pictures with your phone or a camera or whatever. So that wraps it up for this video. If there was anything else that you thought I should cover, any kind of end user skills or knowledge that would be beneficial to you guys, I think a lot of this video is my preferences, but also just general information that I think is good for you guys to know that is to your benefit. So please do let me know if you have suggestions for that or for the mod itself, and thank you for watching.